Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. I'm reaching into my bucket of pandemic projects, and I've chosen today the Pflueger Medalist. It's the 1622Z. Pflueger is a company that's been around an awful long time. It was founded by Ernest Pflueger, and many of you are aware that in the late 50s, Pflueger was acquired as part of the Shakespeare company, and Shakespeare was subsequently acquired by Pure Fishing. So this company's been around a long time. This reel is circa 1980s. It's a nice metal-bodied case. It's a freshwater reel for the most part. It's about a 20 size. Holds about 145 yards of 10-pound monofilament, about 160 of 8-pound. So it's in that 6 to 10-pound category in terms of the line weights. So it's ideal for river fishing and freshwater fishing, and maybe some inshore bay type fishing in the salt water. So let's take it apart. It's a single ball bearing reel, I believe. It's a 5.2 to 1 gear ratio. It's a nice solid case. It's working. It's been in my bucket for a while now. I think it became part of my collection as one of those flea market finds. And we'll take this apart. We'll show you how to tune it up if you have one of these, and we'll show you how to what it's made of in case you were wondering. So we're going to take the spool off first. We'll come back and service those drags last. It just happens to be a habit of mine, but I always like to check underneath, make sure there's no line or other things that are in there. The reel is pretty dirty, so it doesn't hurt to do some cleanup along the way. I'm going to hit this thing with some cleaner. In this case, this is a purple power degreaser, and this looks like it just has a lot of dirt and grease and grime, and I don't know if that's bled out from the oiling of the reel, or if that's just kind of been laying in a bank, river bank, or on the bottom of a boat or something. But over time, it's just kind of accumulated some dirt and grease and grime in the channels there. So with the top off, then I want to take the handle off. I'm going to look over to the other side, and here we have a screw that's easily visible, so we know that the handle goes right through the body. And we're going to just take an appropriate screwdriver, remove that screw, and we'll move from there. So I was just working on a reel the other day. You'll see it posted shortly. It's a Shakespeare Alpha from about the same time, and they probably, my guess is it's going to share a lot of the same characteristics since they were the same company at that time. So Shakespeare really didn't get making reels, spinning reels, until they acquired Langley, which was done in the mid-50s, and Pflueger and everybody else, I guess, post-war started making spinning reels. It's hard to find an American-made spinning reel. Prior to World War II, there were some, I believe, French and other European reels that were making spinning reels prior to the war, but it's hard to find a U.S.-made one. That boom really happened post-war, and everybody seemed to come out with them. When Shakespeare and Pflueger merged, Shakespeare kind of took their president's line, and they actually assigned that brand to Pflueger. So today, one of the more popular Pflueger reels is the Pflueger President Series, and that was, as I mentioned, assigned from Shakespeare. The early presidents were actually Shakespeare reels. All right, 3 side plate screws. We'll take that side plate off then. And just like every other older reel that seems to be out there, this one's suffering from dried grease. So we have the main gear, and we have the crosswind arm kind of stuck in the case there. So this is just a matter of cleaning up. Very simple reel by nature and design, and just a little bit greasy. So let's go ahead and finish disassembly on this. We've got the core axle shaft that comes out, and then we have a probably a 12mm nut sitting there. And this is ideal. This is a Mitchell 300 tool, but it works on so many of these main pinion gear nuts. It seems to be the 12mm nut is very popular in holding all of these things on. Okay, rotor comes off. You just want to check underneath. It's nice and clean. While you have it underneath there, it doesn't hurt to grab some penetrating oil or the like and just load up that little bail trip. And interestingly enough, as I'm underneath there, I'm just seeing that there's a little bit of dried grease, so we took care of that as well. When you're doing that as part of your service, take the penetrating oil, get it into the seams where it meets on both sides of the rotor, and just work it back and forth. Now, if this had a line roller guide, a burring, you would lubricate that. This does not have a burring on this one. So I'm just going to lube it up, do it a couple of times, and put it in there. Next up then, we can deal with the ball bearing and the pinion gear. Note that the big screw is at the handle side of this. That's going to be the bail trip when this rotor comes flying around here. So you want to take that off. This is a collar that's holding the bearing and the pinion gear in place. And you want to be careful with these. If you find that there's resistance there, if that screw's not moving, just use some penetrating oil or something to get into the threads there. Don't just go horsing it, because if you do and you break the screw in the case, well, your reel's done for. So just a word of caution there. Lessons learned. I've broken a few. Okay, so with collar off, just give it a good squirt, the bearing. Give it a good squirt of oil. In this case, I'm using Real X, which is it's an aftermarket. It's not a major manufacturer. It's an aftermarket oil and lube. It's a synthetic, and I've had a lot of good experiences with it. So that's why I use that. Just trying to line up the holes here. There we go. Got them lined up. Remember that the broad screw goes below. And then we'll put the other screw up top. Tighten the one up top down. Okay, so we've oiled that bearing. Now, if you didn't want to take that collar off, I suppose you could have done the same thing. I like to check for dirt and grease and junk underneath there, so that's always good. We've got a dry pinion gear here, so let's go ahead and put some grease on that. I'm going to use fishing reel grease here. This one happens to be Penn Precision Reel Grease, and I tell a lot of folks, I don't care what grease you use, it doesn't have to be the same manufacturers, although ironically Shakespeare and Pflueger are part of that Pure Fishing, which houses Penn as well, but just make sure that it's fishing reel grease. Alright, there's some just accumulated junk in the channels here, so let's get that out. We're going to check the teeth, make sure that they're all uniform. Look at it this way as well as sideways to make sure there's no chips and cracks, and go do the same thing again. Just put some grease in a couple of different spots there. Don't overload it. There's no sense for having grease in the channel there. It's not going to do anything. And then we can seat that. And if you like, you can turn the pinion gear just to make sure that it's all operating the right way. Next up then is to put a light coating of grease onto where the trail arm would be. You're going to grab the rotor and put that on up top. Just need to line up your flat side of your pinion gear. And grab the hold down nut. Notice that some hold down nuts actually come off as if you were tightening them. You want to make sure that they're not reverse threaded. Some manufacturers do that reverse threading. Once we have that on, then we can grab the axle shaft, clean the excess dried grease off of that. I'm using steel wool for that. You can run a light coat of grease onto the axle shaft and slip slide that through the hole and down into the channel. And then we can install the arm. The arm goes into the hole in the axle shaft and over. Then there's a little shim washer that goes on top of the main gear side stud. That's to hold the crosswind arm from slipping off that little circle that it runs on. And then we can just reinstall the side plate. Grab those 3 screws, close that up, and go up top, take a look at the drag washers up there after we give it a little bit of a test here. Now I noticed on the way out that the 3 side plate screws are identical in size, so it doesn't matter where they go. You should pay attention to that as you go and take your reels apart. Sometimes those side plate screws vary in length, and if they do, you want to make sure you know which one belongs either in the long side or the short side. Okay, and grab the handle at this point. See, it's already working well. Put the handle screw on the other side here. And this tune-up takes maybe 10-15 minutes. That's what you should be doing with all of your fishing reels in the off-season. It's nothing particularly difficult about this one. What's difficult about this one is if you need parts, chances are you're not going to find the parts. The reel is just too old, and nobody maintains the supply any longer. Alright, so here we go with the drags then. There's a little heptagonal clip that rides in a groove here. So you take that off to access the drag washers. And I'm just going to kind of lay these out here and see what we have, and that'll determine what we're going to do with these. They're a little sticky. It might be, well, it's time for servicing for sure. I'm going to grab some penetrating oil then. I'm going to hit this top of the spool with that. The top drag reels take all of the brunt of the water that you're in when you're fishing. When that wet line is coming through your line guides on your pole, all of that water is splashing onto the, let's move the camera a little bit, all of it's splashing onto the top here. And that's actually led some manufacturers to do some innovative things. We've seen with Penn, for example, with the slammer drags, they've put the drags underneath the top spool now. That's kind of been the way that Mitchell is. The main drag washer lies below. This is probably a leather washer, appears to be, and appear to be okay. We have simple setup here. Now on a leather washer, these are flexible, but you can use drag grease. In this case, I'm going to use some Cal's Universal Drag Grease. Just going to put a little bit on there. I actually put too much on there. That's okay. These are porous and will absorb it. Then you want to lay that washer in. We have a eared washer which goes next. This is only a 2-on-2 system. You have another one of the drag washers. And that's not unusual. Don't take that as a weak point of the reel. You're just not going to have heavy drag requirements of this reel. This one's got some tarnish up top, so I'm going to grab that steel wool just to get the dirt off of it. There's some blemishing on it, but it's not corrosion. So that goes in there, and then we grab that spring clip again. I'm going to reload the spring clip. Keep your finger on it when you're putting it in is a groove that this rides in. So set one side of it into the groove, hold the clip, and then work it around so that the other side fits in that groove as well. And load the spool up there. And then I got a little bit of dirt on here, so we might as well just take care of the house cleaning. I'm going to use that degreaser again. Good shot of that. Just kind of clearing the channels, make it look pretty, if you will. Dirt is the enemy of reels, so keep the dirt off of it and you'll be a whole lot better for it. Even if it seems trivial, like the dirt on that drag adjuster knob. Okay, put that down, tighten it down to make sure it holds. It's holding. Now, like any good reel, if you there's no sense leaving it in that full press down position unless you're intending to fish this thing right away. So back that drag off so it doesn't squeeze out or press the drags. Just let them go. Alright, there you go. So this is running a whole lot smoother than when we started, and the reason for that is it's got grease again, grease and oil, and that's how you tune up a Pflueger Medalist or any of those types of reels from this generation. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please like it and subscribe. If you have questions, then by all means leave them in the comments section. I'll try and answer whatever I can regarding those questions, even if they have no relevance to this particular one, if it's fishing related, regardless of whether it's a Pflueger reel that you're asking about or some other reel. Just leave them in the comments below and I'll try and get back to you on that. And finally, yeah, I am a reel service. If you have a reel that needs repair and it may be intimidating, you just don't have the mechanical aptitude, or you just don't want to do it yourself, then contact me on my email, which is in the descriptions, and I'll be happy to work with you to service your reel. So with that, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for watching.